3 hours on Christmas Eve. We're going to replay that entire show.
We teared up.
We did.
It was beautiful.
We did.
It's such a story. Such a great relationship of the three of us.
I tear up every time I hang out with you. I want to tell you that.
Okay.
That's how much I'm emotionally moved by you. Every month we do a Get to Know Your TPD segment, and we're happy to have Sgt Bustamante here. He's with the MIST. You're doing you're like working both things, right? You're doing MIST and Sergeant of SROs.
Yes, it's double duty. For the time being, there's a process in place to replace me in the mental health support team. But is that the right word? Not unfortunately. I guess, matter of factly, there's a lot of crossover between vulnerable populations dealing with mental illness and then youth, not to imply that they're all mentally ill, but there are some things that I think we can do with youth at an earlier age that could help offset some things that may manifest when they're adults or even young adults.
There's a documentary called Paper Tigers, which talks about, have you seen it?
Yes.
Are you familiar with it? Basically, it talks about a high school experience up in Pacific Northwest somewhere where these family events, adverse childhood events, they call them, if you have a series of them with alcoholism in your family or addictions or jail, whatnot, how they manifest in the kids. And it's a cycle that repeats itself from year to year to year, generation to generation. And you must see that.
Absolutely. And we're very familiar with the ACEs. That's not to imply we're experts at all, but we're aware of it. We try to incorporate it in all we do. But that right there is a challenge based on what you just said.
Right.
If without let me describe it this way. Both as a patrol supervisor and as an officer, when you go to a domestic violence call, there's everything that's in front of you that you can define as the elements of a crime, a probable cause for an arrest, and then follow through per state statutes. You do all these things, you follow through with them, you provide for the victim as best you can, you do an assessment for their risk, and you forward that off to people who can come in and help. Well, there's a kid there. Yeah. There's more than one kid there.
Sure.
So if they go, let me say this, let me put on the SRO hat for a while, the school resource officer hat. Schools are safe.
Yeah.
They are safe places. No kid out there of any socioeconomic class does not want to go to school. They want to go to school because they're safe. That's where they want to be.
It may be the only safe place in that child's life.
Only safe place in the child's life. And to bring it back to the domestic violence example, regardless of what we do at the school, and when I say we, I guess that might be a little presumptuous, teachers, staff, counselors, administrators, the monitors, what they do, they provide that safety. But as soon as that kid goes home, they're back in that environment where to connect their education with the actual experience they have at home, sometimes there's that significant disconnect. So how do you address that gap? How do you address that?
So during this lockdown situation of not having these kids at schools, you're just multiplying that horrible situation where it doesn't need to be.
Absolutely. For some kids, absolutely. And then just to be completely as positive as I can, there are more good people than bad in this world. There are more good parents than bad parents. Sure. I can go on and on and on. If that weren't true, somebody my size couldn't have been doing this job for 20 years. That is for certain, without a doubt. Sure. But as the SROs are right now, because of the pandemic and all the restrictions, we're trying to do everything we can to reach out to the kids. And I'm trying to get all my SROs to use the term outreach and know what it means and know how significant it can be.
Well, 10% of the population at TUSD is just off the radar. So you got truancy issues there. So is that the way to get in?
I don't know what the percentage is, but yes, just from articles I've read in the newspaper and I've heard on the newscast, absolutely. There's a segment of that population. I mean, prior to this, with the charter schools, I read articles about the, quote, charter school gap and where are all these kids going? Are they getting the right education? Are these charter schools doing a responsible job? And the answer for a lot of them was yes. Fast forward to now, where are these kids falling through? And then in the state of Arizona, you can homeschool. There's an affidavit you have to fill out, and you can homeschool, and whatever curricula you decide to go with is what you go with or not. So, I mean, we are definitely in a time of a great deal of change.
But the scary part is that what percentage of those kids literally are just running wild, right? They're not going to class. They have parents who don't value education, and they're not going to spend them time to get them a computer, or even if the district wants to buy them one or rent them one or give them one, the parents don't want to come in and mess with coming in and get. That's the part that's really worrisome.
Your operative phrase, value of education, that's gigantic. And how do we get that to resonate in houses when we're not standing in that living room trying to impart to them the importance of? I'm not smart enough to answer it, but I do know it needs I always use the term or the description of a drippy faucet. You just got to be persistent and consistent and keep making that connection. Because whatever they're learning at school, if it doesn't match what they're learning at home, there's that one disconnect. But if you can somehow incorporate what it is they're confronted with at home with somewhere in between SROs maybe to the school, and be able to translate how the efforts they're taking at school is not just to meet criteria, to get a letter grade, or to satisfy some teacher who's, quote, nice. It's to impact what you're doing at home and how to see it. I can't tell you, growing up here locally, the circle of friends and acquaintances, too, that I had, and among them, if we stacked up the living situations amongst all of us, you'd see all the commonalities. And I'm not going to imply at all that I'm like this great, exemplar of success or whatever, but I did okay. But you look at some of my buddies, no, they didn't. They got incarcerated. They got caught up in substance use. And what those differences are, why their realities were different than mine and mine from theirs, I'm not smart enough to tell you exactly what it is, but I got some ideas.
Mom and dad. Got to be number one.
Got to be part of it, without a doubt. And then
church and community and social network,
yes,
and having someone that believed in you, right? So when you have that moment to go right or left, you make the decision, and you get that character is in you somewhere, somehow. Came from somebody.
That's so huge. Yeah. To say someone believes in you. Yeah. It's not a slogan or a poster.
Right.
Somebody looks you in the eye. I'll tell you. I remember I was a 7th grader and just gone through a whole bunch of stuff at home. And I played the trumpet. And that was my release. All that stuff I couldn't articulate, all that stuff I couldn't convey, whether it was a lack of vocabulary or insight into the human condition, I couldn't get it out.
Right.
So I played my trumpet, and I did it well. Well, my band director at the time, who was 8 feet tall and 3 feet wide and 40 feet wide, he was huge. He wasn't that big, of course. But he trusted me with his professional level grade trumpet. I remember walking home with that trumpet and just afraid that I was going to bump it and break it.
You white knuckled that thing all the way home.
And we used to walk through this alley from my junior high. Now they're called middle schools, of course. And I was walking on and it was the zoo, we called it, because all these, and I was just protecting it.
Mm-hmm.
Just protecting it. Why? Because it was a trumpet. I was afraid to break it? No. It's because he believed in my ability enough and my whatever talent I had at the time that he was going to trust me with this trumpet so I could see the difference. It was huge. Huge. It was all downhill from there. But
do you have time for one more segment?
Do
you have a gig? Okay. Let's do one more segment with Sergeant Dan Bustamante. 790-2040 is a phone number. You're on 1030 The Voice, local news and talk. Joe Higgins, Christy Simone. Wake up, Tucson. He loves that. So welcome back to the Wake Up Tucson show. Joe Higgins is back for a special Christmas show. Coming up at 8 o'clock after Sergeant Dan Bustamante in studio, Santa Claus.
I know him.
Santa will be here.
I did the security sweep, so we're good.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
So, Santa, I know you're listening. Sergeant Dan says it's okay for you to come in. He's cleared the way. So, we're talking to Sergeant Dan. He's transitioning from the mental illness support team over into, of course, student resource officers. We're talking about what's going on in the world right now and the effect on kids with these restrictions. I want to get into a couple other things, but these restrictions and these kids, let's say the kids who are from the family that's not so troubled. What's been the effect on those kids who are trying to do their best, but they're not interacting with their kids, what are you seeing as the effect on those kids?
Well, when you look at, and I'm not implying at all that I'm some kind of expert in adolescent development, but of what I know of it, part of that maturation is they take on different personalities virtually, not to imply some kind of mental illness, not at all. I'm just saying that they're testing their ideals. Everything is an experiment. So they have to prove these things out for themselves. So they've grown up with an idea of mom or dad being the example that they should follow, for example, or as an example.
Until you crush their dreams and they know
Until you crush their dreams by telling them the dreaded word no.
Right.
And then they have to navigate that. So social media, texting, video, whatever you call it.
Joe's a big TikToker.
Well, thank you. It's not social media. For me, it's socially awkward media. I can't get it quite right. But for these kids...
You're better for it.
These kids, they've done a lot of that or not, but regardless, they have a connection with their buddies, their friends, their teachers, their counselors, all of it. All of that's been changed. It's different. So regardless of how strong their household may or may not be, and by whatever definition you want to apply that would lead to positive outcomes at school, it's different. And different isn't always bad or good. It's just exactly that, different, and they got to try to navigate that. And a big part of it that's missing is, I got to go back to, overall schools are safe and the kids feel safe there. So amongst their friends, amongst that one trusted teacher, monitor, whatever it is, somebody might get an inkling to go to the mental health support team side of my brain, switch that hat. They'll let a counselor know, they'll let a teacher know that something might be amiss with that child, that student, and then do their best to provide them an opportunity to open up and talk about something. That's different now. That's on the video conferencing, that's on telemedicine appointments, whatever it may be.
Sure.
So it's different. And is ironic the right word? I don't know if ironic's the right word, but it's interesting that a lot of kids of a certain age will play video games and broadcast it across the internet and play that person across the world, nation, whatever.
Right.
And yet now they're being asked to learn and convey what's going on with them across that same medium. And they're struggling with it. From what I hear, they're having difficulties with it. Not all of them, but some of them. And it's leading to anxiety. It's leading to despair, even possibly depression. And unfortunately, we do hear of, in my position, I review a lot of case reports. And I have read a lot of case reports of children, juveniles, that are now having police contact in the hopes to get on a path to getting some kind of mental health intervention. And I would argue that if schools were in session, traditionally, the teacher would notice, the counselor.
So for 200,000 years, we've been learning around a fire from elders and having conversations and understanding what's right and wrong through great stories and just on and on and on. And this dynamic of just social media before the COVID thing, right, where we're all stuck in this little phone and we're not interacting with people anymore like we used to, number one. COVID has exponentially made that worse. I'm talking, I don't care if you're an 80-year-old, my mother or dad,
sure, or
you're a third grader. You don't have that interaction and that ability to see what life is about and to learn from your peers and from your teacher that you trust and love. Absolutely. It is a huge issue that I don't think we're going to see the ramifications of for the next 5, 8, 7, 10 years.
And that's something that if we can be prepared for, whatever that means.
Just academic growth. The major academic growth happens in K through 5. By middle school, it starts slowing down. By high school, it's pretty much locked. You're missing some critical time to read, time to do math, time to do critical thinking.
And we were already doing such a poor job with it locally anyway, so now it's going to be even worse.
Exactly.
So. Well, we talked about education being meaningful at home. Well, I don't know if it's the appropriate role for police, but I think it is a role that we can try to exemplify to kids and parents how important it is to read, how important it is to think, and thinking is something kids are really good at because they're trying to figure it all out and test all the ideals they have and try to sort it through by themselves. Now, where did they get that modeling of it's okay to think through something, it's okay to not be okay, it's okay to feel off kilter, it's okay to ask for help? I mean, those are things as a grown man that I still have some struggles with, to know when, hey, can you help me out?
Right.
Hey,
support network and peers. You can learn from mom and dad, but you got to learn from your buddies and your people at school and playground. And
and I mean, I'm blessed again because in the mental health support team, I inherited some officers that are just... Now, here's where I got to be cautious because I don't want to imply or say directly that they're so super specialized that they're completely apart from field patrol officers. Absolutely not. they have an aptitude, and they were drawn to working with vulnerable populations from whatever background they may have, and then it's reinforced by the training that they've been exposed to, and then with their boots in the ground, they're doing the business of dealing with this mentally ill and the vulnerable populations and the families, and they learn. So it becomes a very specialized unit, but the talent, skills, and ability. And I would tell them if they're sitting right here with me, it's on par with what is out there in the field, without a doubt. But I am very grateful. And that's not to minimize. I just want to give an accurate account, because the people you see the officers you see in a patrol car, she is just as talented, skilled, and insightful as the guys and girls that I have working for me right now. And the people I have working for me right now, they do this out of a passion to try to meet someone on their terms and get them to the help they need, without them feeling like they're being condescended to or judged or cornered.
Sergeant Dan, we're running out of time.
Oh, cool.
Thank you for everything. Thanks for your service. We really appreciate the conversation. Love to do it again.
Paper Tigers documentary. Please watch it. It'll open your eyes to what this is.
Last question.
In every school in America, walking down every street in America, there are the kids that get labeled. Get rid of them. They're nothing but trouble. Lincoln sits right in the heart of the most assaults, gang activity, truancy.
I did hear that it was the worst school you could ever go to.
Kids had knives, fights, absolute chaos.
He pissed me off and I threw a chair at him. And I told him I was going to kill him.
All of them were methed out.
I was invited to go to a conference about complex trauma and what stress does to the brain.
The behavior isn't the kid. The behavior is a symptom of what's going on in their life.
My mom was like, get your shit and leave. She's the only thing I had. And for her to abandon me like that.
His coping mechanism was drinking a ton, smoking a ton.
I remember one night, I didn't want to be alive.
It hit me, and it hit me really hard.
You have to unconditionally love them, and you have to believe that their behavior might be out of their control.
I love playing guitar with several of these guys. I feel like that's almost as strong as anything we ever do in class.
After that, he wasn't only a discipline figure, he was like a friend.
Half of the student body had over a 3-point GPA. To watch their confidence come back has been incredible.
I'm not by myself anymore. I got a team.
If I can do it, all of you can definitely do it.
It's not that I'm judging you. I know why you're smoking weed. I know why you smoke meth. I know why you're in fights you don't want to feel. I mean, that's the big challenge is I'm asking you to try feeling for a little bit, because sometimes when you feel, it guides you in the direction that you should be going and not to where you are.